If you're not listening to the Smoke World podcast, you're wasting your time, you mortal.
What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of Smoke World. I'm your host, Stone. So go grab that stick, go grab a glass, whatever you're drinking. Let's sit back and have a conversation. You can follow me on Instagram at Smoke World Podcast. Email stone@smokeworldpodcast.com. Again, the website, people. It sounds like a song because I intro every intro with the saying. Website, smokeworldpodcast.com. We got a lot of great things going on there. Again, I keep telling you about the cigar deals. Go support the sponsors. They believe in me. I believe in them. That's what we do. Today's episode, I am joined by my brothers of the Leaf. Man, this is going to be an interesting story, interesting episode. We're talking to brothers who worked on Rikers Island. So we're going to be talking about what goes on behind the bars. So I got my brother Marty in the building. I got my brother Ty in the building. Brothers of the Leaf who have joined me on this podcast. Brothers, what's up, fellas? What's going on with you, fellas?
How you doing, Stone, my brother?
Good to see you. Good to see you, man.
Brother. So look, brothers, I normally start off with a little demographic about, where you're from, how long you've been smoking this stick. So I'm going to start with Ty. Ty, how long have you been smoking cigars, brother?
I've been smoking a cigar over 30 years. I started when I was in the Marine Corps, and I just graduated from mild, and I smoke all full body right now. CAO 660.
Oh, wow. Okay. In the Marine Corps. Now,
that's my go-to.
Okay, but, folks don't know how long you was in the Marine Corps. Was it yesterday?
I did 11 years active duty. I went in from 75 to 86. I did 1 year of reserve. I joined Corrections in 85.
Oh, that's what's up. Well, thank you for your service, brother. Thank you for your service. And you are from where?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. East New
Brooklyn?
York, by way of Staten Island, and I'm now a Delawarean.
Oh, man, sorry to hear that, buddy. Wow, sorry to hear that. Brother Marty, my main
sir.
man over there. What's up, brother?
Everything good. Everything good.
Yo, now, I think you're kind of new to the state. Again, I could be incorrect.
You are correct. I'm fairly new. I would say about 10 years.
Oh, that ain't new. I'm sorry, that ain't new.
Well,
that ain't new. I'm sorry.
Relatively speaking.
It's not new.
Because this brother right here was the one that got me to start smoking cigars.
Oh, that's what's up. But yeah, 10
10
years is not new.
Go.
So I'm apologize on that because 10 years is not new. Now, if you had said maybe 10 months, but 10 years, that's a long time. Now, where you from, brother?
I am from New York City, from the Bronx.
Boogie down.
No doubt. Born in Manhattan, but raised in the Bronx.
Damn. Okay, fellas. All right, so, we start the show off with a little bit of that little history. So we're going to jump right into it because I had the fellas, it's on me. I had the fellas waiting. We got some stuff going on, sipping, smoking.
Yes, sir.
Right now, tonight, I'm smoking on the AJ Fernandez New World. Always a banger. AJ Fernandez, it is what it is. Brother T.
I whip my go-to, my 660 CAO. That's what I smoke, mostly, 99% of the time.
That is true, because that's all I've been seeing you with lately. So, any particular reason?
I just love the taste, the aroma, the burn, and this is my legal weed. It gets me nice.
Oh, you getting high off of your cigar?
Kinda.
True indeed.
Okay.
And I'm good. So,
so you get
this
high
is what
off
I
yours.
do.
All right, that's what's up. All right, so look, we're going to get right into this thing, fellas. We ain't going to mess around. We're going to get right into what's going on. So, Rikers Island.
Yes, sir.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're getting into it now. Rikers Island. So
Let's go with the belly of the beast.
Yeah. I'll start with you, Ty, because I think you started.
30 plus years.
Dang, that's a long time behind the bars, brother. A long time behind the scenes. So, what year did you start? You recall that?
1985.
Did you want to be a CO?
No. From where I came from, I knew people that went to jail, and I went into the Marines. I never knew anything about jail except for what I heard on the streets. But what I heard on the streets, I recall that You know, people coming back from jail saying, yo, I was the boss, I was this, I was that in jail. I was on house gang. House gang runs everything. When I got to jail, I found out that was all a lie.
Okay, what do you mean by that? What was all a lie?
House gang?
What is that? So you gotta understand, the people that's listening to this podcast don't have no clue what you're talking about. So I'm gonna have to ask you to break some things down, because again, they're listening, and these folks, some of these people ain't never seen the jail, know how to spell jail. So you're gonna have to give them a little breakdown on some of these code words that you're using.
Also, let me explain about what house gang is. In jail, and again, I was in a jail. I wasn't in a prison or a penitentiary. This is a city jail. That's so different in how it's run. We had inmates that come in that do a week, a day, maximum of 3 years on Rikers Island. So understand that we had a different type of inmate. We had lifers that came from state prison back down fighting their cases. They only stayed for a minimum amount of time to fight their case. But on Rikers Island, which is a city jail, we had people that came in from a day to a week, maximum of 3 years.
So you got a combination of prisoners, facing
Adolescents, adults, yes.
Okay, and you started this in 85.
Sentenced and detainees. Detainees are people who are still fighting their case. Sentenced people, they have been sentenced to a month to 3 years.
Okay, now did you see personally a difference in those who were sentenced for longer periods of time as far as behavior, and the ones who may have been there just maybe a week, a month, or several months? Were there any difference in behavior based on your experience?
Yes, sir. It was a night and day difference.
What was that difference, you think?
People have a misnomer about jail and about people who do time. I had less problems with people who were doing 20 years to life than the people who were detained or the people who were sentenced to a month or a day to 3 years. The behavior was totally different. When you go to the prison or penitentiary, we call that crime college. Where we were in the city jail, that's the beginning of your indoctrination into incarceration.
So that's like the kindergarten in the sense of just getting started. So
Let's just say it's junior high school.
Junior. And Marty, I want you to jump in, because like I said, you know, each person's experience will probably be different.
True.
So what was your experience? Would you
My-
agree with what he's saying? Was that your experience? Put it that way.
I agree with him, but I had a little different experience. I came on later. I didn't start till 1997.
Okay, so things were a little different.
They were a little different. By then, he was a seasoned veteran. He worked on different jails on Rikers Island, off Rikers Island. He had little different experience than I did.
Okay, so
After the academy, I went to one specific jail, and that's where I worked my whole 20 years.
So what was your experience compared to what he's stating? What did you think you saw that might be different from what he's just explained as far as some of those behaviors? And the question was, is there a difference between those who come in maybe as far as behavior, a week or sentence for several months opposed to long-term periods of incarceration?
There definitely was a difference. But once I got there and got some experience on the job, I noticed a change. Now,
And it was more about control.
Yeah, we definitely
Who controlled what?
We definitely had things under control. But what I noticed, the people who were sentenced to a month, 3 months, they just wanted to get it over. So they wasn't going to give you a problem. They wanted to hurry up and go home.
Right, in and out.
Right.
I'm just stopping by.
Right.
Misunderstanding.
The ones that were sentenced to a year to 3 years, whatever it might have been, they were giving problems. Now, it might have been because they knew they were facing more time upstate.
Career criminals.
Yeah. Real criminal, real
Recidivists.
thugs. And didn't want to conform. So they were sometimes a problem.
They came in jail because in jail they were somebody. In the streets, they were a regular Joe. So when you come to jail, yo, I know him from back in the day, or he from this hood, or he was getting it either financially, drug-wise, or, you know, committing murders, or just crimes. When you are that type of person in jail, you wield some type of power.
And in that, yeah, sometimes they were a problem. Especially because they had the stature and they wanted that recognition. So they wanted to show those guys who were only there for 2 months, 3 months, I run this. So you guys who, yes sir, yes ma'am, to these officers, I don't do that. Yo, CO, I need this. What we doing about this? And that's where I say they were a little more of a problem. Well, not a major problem, because at that time, like I said, the jails were under control. I had a lot of veterans like this man here who held it down for us and paved the way. So we were good.
Now, what was the mindset, personally, to know that you had to go and deal with this every day? Did you have to mentally prepare yourself to say, you know what, I got to mentally prepare? Because you don't know what you're going to get into when you get into the prison.
True.
Or jail. So what was the mental makeup that you had to go through, if you went through any, on a daily basis, to now put your uniform on, to say, now I got to go in here? Because to me, which is true, you're locked down with them prisoners.
Yes.
You're a prison. You're locked down. Once you locked in that facility, everybody's locked in there.
Yes.
You just get to walk out at the end of the day. They
True
don't.
Indeed.
So back to the original question, was there anything in particular as far as a mental makeup that you had to put on to get yourself together for a daily dose of going into the prison to go to work?
I personally didn't, and I attest that to my age. I turned 23 when I graduated the academy, and I was fresh into the jail, 23 years old, still young, still not knowing about life. I went in there, hey, it's us against them. I'm going to be good. Those guys that I'm working with in there, some of those guys that are locked up, I saw them in the street. I was in the streets too. I know who they are. I know what they do. So it wasn't really a problem. The problems came later when I had to realize, hey, it's not always us against them. Sometimes the problem comes from people in uniform that work with you. That's where sometimes I had my problem. Dealing with the inmates, a lot of time was not a problem. I understood why they were there, what they were doing while they were in there, and it's not a problem. Again, I was young. None of it really bothered me.
All right, so if we can elaborate, okay, you say the people in uniform, you're saying they gave you, in some incidents, gave you more problems than the prisoners.
Yes.
What
why
do you
he
mean?
got this pose, why he not doing this, why he doing that, why she doing this, the captain likes her, the dep likes her, his uncle's the warden or a boss. It was things like the nepotism and I can't think of the word right now, the fraternization that went on in the jails was a problem amongst peers.
I felt, honestly, I started to feel like I was back in high school. You had the cool kids. You had the freshmen that we're not going to speak
Rookies.
to, and they're not going to sit at the table with us and eat. They need to go sit somewhere else. That's what I started to deal with. And as he said, why is he getting to work there? Why is he so friendly with that person when I never got to be friendly with that person? What is he doing?
What is she doing?
Yeah, that's what I started to see. And like I said, that's where the problems
Now, okay, with that being the case, could that affect the way you did your job and the way you handled yourself?
It didn't affect the job I was doing. I didn't have a problem doing the job. But it started to affect how I started to deal with my fellow coworkers.
Motivation.
Well, proceed, Ty. Go ahead.
It happens again, like when you seeing I paid my dues. I got 5-10 years on the job. You got a rookie fresh out of the academy getting a detail of escorting inmates. He or she doesn't know anything about escorting inmates through the hallways, through the corridors. And yet you got that position or that detail for the day. I'm working dorms. Dorms, when I first started, was 180 to a dorm. It's 2 officers to 180 inmates, double bunks. And now, you look, the only ones who got those jobs when I came on was senior officers. You couldn't escort nobody because you didn't know how. When something goes down in the hallway, how do you react? You don't have the time or the experience. When I say time on the job, which is still experience, to handle a situation that goes down in the corridor with hundreds of male inmates. So we would question, I've been locked in this dorm with all these people all this time. Why can't I get a break by escorting or taking or doing other details?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, so this particular detail or duty was more of a, I'm not say light duty, but wasn't, I guess I'm not gonna say it's dangerous, because prison is dangerous. Being in that prison is a dangerous job. So
Right.
based on, if I'm hearing you correctly, Ty, that you're saying those details or that job description for that day.
You would do anything to get out of the dorm or the cell block because
Okay.
you're locked in with them. When you're walking the corridors, you got space,
You have more freedom.
freedom to see other people, see other things, and talk to other people. When you locked in those dorms and those cell blocks, all you see is who's locked in with you. And you got to deal with all those different personalities by yourself.
So what are some of the things that could go wrong? I mean,
Anything can go wrong.
You're talking about 180 people or men, and you have 2 COs.
Yes, you had a officer who was outside the dorm, outside the gate, locked outside the gate, and you had the B officer that had to be inside with them and make tours. So the B officer was the person that was in there with them day to day. 8 to 17 hours, 8.5 to 17 hours a day.
On lockdown with the prisoners.
On lockdown, so you basically was doing time with them.
I would have to agree. Absolutely. Now, what are some of the things that can go wrong or have went wrong?
Any and
based on
everything
your
can go
experiences?
wrong. You got an argument down the corridor or down the back of the dorm. They're arguing. That could be a setup. They're arguing down there to distract you for something that's going to go on up in the front of the dorm. So when you go respond to that situation, somebody behind you can be getting sliced up or raped.
Have you experienced that?
Yes, I have experienced people being raped and sliced up, stomped out. I've experienced officers. I myself got into fights.
So, how do you handle that? So, okay, let's start with the first scenario.
Fake it till you make it. If you don't know what to do. Being that I came from a family of 10 brothers and sisters. So I grew up fighting. I came from a neighborhood that's all we did. So when I came from the Marine Corps, so fighting wasn't a problem for me. I wasn't scared to do that. But being locked inside, and they fashioned weapons from anything. I had no clue on what went on inside in the jail. So I was shell shocked. I almost quit the first day I came on.
And why was that?
We were at a roll call the first day in the jail. We were on, it's called on-the-job training.
JT, on the job training.
On the job training. So you go into a jail as a rookie. You in the academy. You go in to after your training. They teach you how to do the job. Then they do practical application. You go inside the jail and you apply what you was taught. First of all, you in a certain type of uniform that shows that you in the academy. You're not even a rookie. You in the academy.
Oh, wow.
So you're not even on the job yet. You still in the academy being taught. And the inmates know this, and they try you. They know all the tricks of the trade. They do whatever they can to get you to do what they want or to make their day or life easier in jail.
Wow. Okay. So now we all watch TV shows.
Don't believe what you see on TV.
Okay,
None of that is real.
Okay, that's
because
what I wanted
that's
to
not
touch.
what goes on in the jail.
Right,
They will
so-
never show you what actually goes on in the jail.
And that's why I wanted to kind of
They will never show you what goes on in the jail.
take that off the table. So, we've got these shows, the Oz.
That's not real. That's
Right.
TV, and a lot of it is fake. It's not that it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen the way they show you. So when you see that on TV, you think you can go in jail and you can be having sex with the women or the men, officers or other inmates. It's not that simple.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I never watched Oz. Have not seen one episode. And when people ask me why, that was my answer. I work there. I do
Why would
not
I watch
need
it?
to see a recreation of fiction of what goes on behind
'Cause
bars.
that's not
I
real.
live it. So I don't want to see it. And to this day, I have not seen one episode of Oz.
I watched it all just to have the conversation or be able to have the conversation about the fakeness of what was on TV. Adabisi would have never existed. It just doesn't happen.
So, okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, there is no Adabisi, meaning that there's
I'm
nobody
not
who runs
saying
that
there
particular
is
block.
no Adabisi. I'm saying it doesn't happen on that scale. What you see on TV, it's TV.
All right.
That's not real.
That scale. So,
Adabisi doesn't even sound like a real name to me. That's how funny it is to me.
right. So, based on that, you're saying it doesn't happen on that scale. So, there is some simulation of what takes place there dealing with that.
Yes, sir. It does.
So-
a simulation.
Okay. So, give us an example of, are there,
Rapes happen in prison.
you know,
But they don't happen the way they
I
show
don't-
it on TV.
I don't want to just name a name. All right, Troy. Troy's running D block. He's the guy. What does that mean?
Troy may run D block amongst the prisoners. He doesn't
Right.
run D block amongst the officers on a grander scale. Some officers do succumb to those issues or those scenes. It does happen. All I'm saying is what you see on TV, it does not happen like that. It really doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, I can't put it any plainer.
Well, maybe
Or
you can
any simpler.
explain to the audience what does happen. What are some of the things that you saw happen?
I've witnessed officers. I haven't witnessed. Okay, I don't want to lie. I haven't witnessed officers having sex with inmates, but I know of officers who have had sex with inmates, male and female.
Well, yeah,
I know of officers who brought in contraband, weapons, and drugs. I do know of it. I've actually witnessed it. All I'm saying is, the way you see it on TV portrayed, it doesn't happen like that. I can't make it any more clearer or simpler that what you see on TV, it really doesn't happen like that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It has happened. It does happen, but not like what you see on TV.
Interesting. Not like we see on TV, because I know for a fact that there have been COs, females, who have come up pregnant from some of the prisoners.
You have males that have impregnated
Absolutely.
female
Yes,
prisoners.
female inmates, yes.
Right. But I guess that's not as exposed because, again, they're behind prison bars.
It happens.
Absolutely.
It
But
It
again,
happens,
It
but
continues to happen.
what he's saying is not to the extent that you see it on TV.
It doesn't happen that easy. It's like the warden is not involved in that, or certain bosses are not involved in that, and some of them have done it. It's just the way you see it on TV. It just doesn't happen like that. I mean, as I've worked in many jails, I worked in almost all the jails. There's 13 jails or buildings on Rikers Island. I've worked in 90% of them. I've worked in the borough jails. I worked in most of them, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, and Manhattan.
Yes, sir.
All I'm saying is, what you see on TV, you get caught up in that. When you get to see the real deal, you will be in for a shock.
Now, this man came on the job before me, and like he said, worked in different jails. I came on in 97 and worked in one jail and one jail only. So he has seen a lot more than I have. I have not seen half of what he's seen. So again, I had a good career. I was very lucky. I had people like him who paved the way. When I came on the job, you couldn't have over 100 inmates in a dorm. The max was 60. I didn't have to deal with half of what he had to deal with. So I was fortunate. Again, I was lucky. The jails were under control. Veterans like him held it down for us, and it was relatively easy for us. My first 10 years on that job, relatively easy. And then it goes south.
Okay, what do you mean?
Laws change.
You have
rules
different
change.
mayors come in. You have new rules come in. And yeah, the authority you once
Liberals.
had, the
Whoa.
the way you were able to control a dorm, a jail, no
How do
longer
inmates
apply.
have more rights in jail than they have in the streets? You got more rights in jail than you got in the streets.
Explain.
You have
Elaborate
an
a little
inmate-
bit on that. What do you mean that they have more rights in jail than in the streets?
In the streets, you assault somebody, and the police are called. You get arrested. You get charged. In jail, you assault somebody, you might just only get transferred, or it might not even get reported.
That's it.
I mean, it's not that it doesn't happen in the streets, but in jail, when you are locked up and you're doing the things that you did in the street in jail and getting away with it, that's a problem. It's almost like saying, let the inmates run the jail.
And
We
that's
don't
what
need-
happens.
We
now.
don't need, see, we as officers work in jail. We prefer to be called officers, but we get the connotation of being called guards or
Jail
turnkeys, jail guards or turnkeys. It's not that it's disrespectful, but that's not what we do. We do more in jail than people know. And the public just thinks that all we do is walk a tier and beat a stick or beat an inmate. It's a life or world unto itself. Unless you were there, you will have no idea on how it's actually run.
Well, this is the reason why I created the podcast, because again, folks, if you listen to the Smoke World, these are the type of conversations that take place in the cigar lounge. We smoke cigars, we have a drink, but we get into real life conversations. This person may be a doctor, this person may be a lawyer. And this is why I wanted you guys to be a guest on the podcast, to kind of give a nice insight of what takes place inside, opposed to the TV exposure or the internet. Somebody
Radio.
reads something on the internet.
Right.
So
Newspapers.
at the end of the day, I bring you guys in to tell the real story
And I
behind the
appreciate that.
scenes. So
Appreciate that.
this is the opportunity for those who are listening. Again, this is what happens, and this is the reason, again, the podcast exists. Because we have real conversations, as I say on the onset. Grab a stick. Maybe you don't smoke cigars. That's fine. And grab a glass of whatever you may be drinking. Whether you drink orange juice, wine, bourbon, whiskey, it doesn't matter.
Just have a drink.
Just have a drink and let's have a conversation. I think more things will be...
And listen.
I think more things can get done if we did this as a whole. If we can do this as Americans or as a people.
Agreed.
That
It all
we-
starts with a
Right.
conversation.
We might not always agree on everything, but at the end of the day, let's have a conversation. Let's find out your perspective, my perspective. You may have a different perspective because, again, speaking of perspective, we had an interesting conversation prior to coming on air about COVID.
Correct.
We had a big discussion about the pros and cons and should folks be
beliefs.
mandated to get the shot.
Yeah.
You know, again, you guys had a different perspective, and I can respect that.
Correct.
And we had a conversation. We didn't fight. We didn't choke each other out. We didn't shoot each other.
I'm a Democrat with Republican views.
Yeah, we're not going to go there. We can really go
I
there.
just wanted to
Ladies
voice
and
that.
gentlemen, you're hearing
I threw it
Ty.
out there.
I'm not really sure. You know, what I mean, he brung that up. People.
This is what
Let's listen.
Tyrone does.
He has brung up the fact that he's a what? Say it again.
Democrat with Republican views.
Okay.
And I'm a Republican.
And as I always say, explain. Now we jumping, folks. We jumping. This is what we do on a podcast. These are real conversations. We could be on one top and boom, we to the next. So bear with us, folks. stay tuned, stay listening. This is going to get good. What do you mean by that, Ty? What is that?
I grew up in the 60s. I witnessed
man, dog. How old are you?
Segregation. We're not gonna get into my age, but just understand that I've experienced this. So just by my conversation, you have a general idea on what my general age could be. All I'm saying is, growing up, seeing the civil rights movement, growing up with segregation, and seeing what went on back in the day, we were taught, I'm saying we as a people of color were taught democratic ways. I'm from the city of New York. Again, I'm only speaking about my limited knowledge of my geographic location and where I grew up. I was taught from my culture to be a Democrat, because Democrats are about people of color. I recently learned that it's not about Democrat or Republican. It's more about who does what for you as a people when you get into the politics. Having learned from the Republican sitting next to me the things that I know now by doing research, because I was a staunch Democrat.
Yes, he was.
Blind, staunch Democrat. When he started showing me the facts about what goes on in politics, I actually changed my views to where I am still a registered Democrat, but I do not vote down the party lines. If you do not do anything for me as a politician and what I agree with, I do not vote for you. If a Republican is campaigning and does what I like or what I think is good for me, I vote for.
And I always give him credit for that, because he says I taught him, or I showed him.
He showed me.
And I disagree with that.
He taught me.
I tell him all the time. All I did was say, hey, you're looking at one aspect of the politics. Let's look over here and see the other side. Let's see what the other side is talking about. Get both views, get all the info, and start making a rational decision for yourself. Leave the politics aside, leave the race aside, leave the personal feelings aside. Just go based on what this one is saying, what they want to do, and what this one is saying and what they want to do. And as time went on, he started to see,
more and more.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't realize that. You know what? I now see what you're talking about, Marty, because he used to fight me. We used to have our arguments. And then he started to realize, oh, now I see why you say what you say and why you feel the way you feel. And that's all I wanted. Look at both sides. Don't just come at me because this is what you believe and that's that.
I wasn't brainwashed. I wasn't coerced. It was information that was presented to me. When I looked, I started to do my own research. And I ended up saying, after my research, Marty, you're right.
No, I think that's the best way to go into any politics. Again, what is going to be best for you and your community, regardless of what, if there's an R before the name or a D.
Democrats done from us since the 70s, early 70s. That's just a question. I'm not looking for an answer. It was just a question.
Thank you.
He's older than me, so again, he
yes.
has a different point of view. He don't want to give his age. Most old people don't.
Wow.
But
I give my age.
I'm 47.
Old
I was born in
don't.
74. So again, what he saw, I didn't see growing up. But as I got older,
15 years older than him.
I did some research. I started to get
Do the math.
deeper into than just watching one channel. And I started to see and realize, yes, because I was raised a Democrat myself.
Now, let me ask you a question in reference to, since we kind of on politics.
Okay.
Do you think that had a outcome or an effect on the prison based on politics? Do you think the politics? Okay.
Most
Definitely, yes.
So, if there was a Republican office, do you think
Countrywide.
there would be? Okay, so Not just locally, but you're saying
Countrywide.
Well, we saw it locally first, and then
that's
it
what I'm saying.
became
Only based on
countrywide.
your experience, because I can't necessarily say you can speak on what happened in
But we
the
watch
Midwest.
we watch television. We see it happening
Well,
all over the country.
we can.
I can
we
speak
watch
on
television.
personal.
We mostly can speak on personal.
That's what I
Right.
want you to talk on, because again, we all watch TV.
Okay.
Consider your source. Depends on what you're feeding yourself.
Believe the
what you're-
tube if you want to.
Right. Depends on what you're looking at. What channel you listen to? The AM. You listen to the FM. You're watching
Right.
upper end of the
CNN.
band.
Right.
Right. So with all that being the case, I don't want to kind of go and spread it about generally.
Fox
We talking
News,
personal
Right. What was
experience.
based on your
Fox
personal
News,
experience?
fake news.
Tyrone, I will let you give
Watch
your
yourself.
personal experience
Don't
first.
run my listeners away.
Yes, sir. I'm not trying to. I have an opinion. That's all it is.
You say it's fake. Well, okay, let's leave it alone. Okay, sir. T.
Yes, sir.
Question. Did you personally see any difference in the prison system based on politics?
Yes, I have. Look at New York right now. I'm only going to go because I'm from New York and I see what's going on in New York. New York is a shithole right now. How can anybody with a conscience, I'm going to say it correctly, conscience, implement, I don't know if it's a law because I'm not sure if it's a law, no bail. Meaning that I have a daughter who's a cop who is arrested the same guy 3 times in one day. Meaning that she arrested him for whatever, misdemeanor. I'm going to say misdemeanor because it mostly wasn't a major crime. Let's say a misdemeanor. That person is out on the street before she even finished her paperwork. And when she finishes her paperwork for the first time, she catches him, goes back on the street, catches him again, arrests him, put him through the system. He's back on the street again. Before the end of her tour, if it happened, which it has happened once or twice, it doesn't happen often, but it has happened. The third time catches the same guy for, let's say, the same petty crime. So 3 times in one day, you catch a guy, male, female, you catch a person for committing a petty crime. And they're back on the street before you finish your paperwork. Is that right? Because all is going to happen, and this is my view, your crime is going to escalate because, okay, I get caught for doing this and I'm back on the street. So I stole a pocketbook. Okay, now I'm not going to steal a pocketbook. I'm going to rob a store or a bank. I'm just saying, what mindset does a politician have to implement a so-called law of no bail? Because I am a law enforcement individual who has worked in a jail, I am pro-jail. You do a crime, you get caught, you go to jail. But I also think that society needs governing. They need the police. Society wants to be police because they want to be protected. All I'm saying again is to nip it and keep my soliloquy short. We need the police. We need bails. We need stricter laws. You break the law, you go to jail.
That's the way it should be. But unfortunately now, we have an unsilent minority. They speak the loudest, they cry the loudest, and so they get their way. Which is why places like New York City, yes, there is no bail. If they feel that crime is not, unless you've actually killed somebody, they will not hold you. You're charged with assault, you're charged with theft, you're charged with stealing a car. You know what? It is now
Carrying a gun.
again, you didn't do nothing with that gun. It's unregistered. It's illegal to carry, but hey, you didn't do nothing with that gun. So you know what? We are not going to put you in jail. We're not going to put you on Rikers Island to sit until your court case comes up.
Putting you back
We're
on the
going to
street.
let you roam the streets
To get another gun.
so you can do whatever you want to do until your court day arrives.
Or
And
you
that's
get
where the
caught
problem
again
is.
doing or committing another crime.
Is this because of unavailable
Politics.
jail space, or just does not have anything to
Has
do with as
nothing to
far
do with
as
jail
capacity
space.
of the jail? It's just strictly, you're saying,
It's the
based on
politics.
politics. That
Politics.
okay, that's your word, sir. Yes, but based on
Democrat
politics.
policies. The Democrats
Liberal
who listen,
Democratic
Wow.
policies.
the ones who listen to the unsilent minority who tell you putting a person in jail because they stole a car or punched a 70-year-old lady in the street for no reason, they should not be in jail. They should not lose their freedom based off such a minor crime. That's where we're at now, and that's the problem.
okay, so kind of revolves right back to the original question of, does the politics, and if the individual has an R in front of the name or a D, changes the dynamics of your job in the prison?
I say yes. My personal experience, I came on the job in 97. Rudy Giuliani was the mayor. And if I recall correctly, the commissioner was Bernard Kerrick, his right-hand man. During that time, the jails were under control. There was no fun and games. You are locked up.
Officers
you
control
do,
the jail.
You, as so much
The
as disrespect
law control the jail.
an officer, you're going to have a problem. God forbid you decide to lay a hand on
Male
an
or
officer.
female.
You are going to feel pain. But we got to a point, once Giuliani was gone, and once Bloomberg decided, I want to become a Democrat and cater to the liberals, we are not going to have that. You cannot simply beat up an inmate because he happened to slap a female officer on the butt. That does not equate. The violence must equate. That inmate,
or sexually assault a male or female.
they did not consider that a sexual assault. An inmate slapping the butt of a female officer, the Democrats decided
Slapping,
that is
squeezing,
not
grabbing,
a problem.
and squeezing her breasts or her buttocks.
That is not violence, so you cannot then invoke violence to make them comply and punish them for what they did. And that's where the problem started to
Okay,
become
I'm glad
a
you
problem.
mentioned that word punishment. So what is the proper recourse? They pull a Trump, grab him by the, okay?
the crotch
No, let's keep it real.
or the vagina.
No, that's not. Grab him by the,
Well, it was stated that Trump
Trump
grabbed
made-
somebody by the vagina, grabbed a female by her vagina.
No,
mean,
Trump
that-
said that. He was talking to another individual, a male.
It was
and he
alleged.
said, hey,
he didn't say vagina,
I am
though.
so good that I can just grab them by the pussy.
Absolutely. So
That's what I do.
all right.
But the current president actually did grab somebody by the pussy. And
He actually-
he's still president.
He
and
actually
nobody has
grabbed a
problem.
young boy
He
by his
grabs-
genitals.
He grabs a lot of young kids and sniffs and does
Whoa,
whatever he
whoa,
wants
whoa,
to do.
whoa,
But
whoa.
what I'm
Security,
saying is he has been alleged by a
whoa.
female to put his
Ladies and
hand
gentlemen, I apologize
inside her
for this.
vagina.
Inside. Oh, boy.
Okay,
She
so
claims it, has alleged it, and nothing has happened.
And that truth
Well-
has been disputed.
if I can get to the question,
The
there,
alleged truth.
With that being the case, what is the proper recourse if that does happen in jail? What is to happen to that inmate? What is the proper punishment or?
He's to be charged within the law. A
Okay,
sexual
so-
assault or what anything is against the law, he should be charged accordingly.
Okay, but now I'm
He
going
or
back.
she should be
Well,
charged accordingly.
I agree with that, but you're saying obviously it sounds like to me that you wanted to inflict some personal pain upon the prisoner that you
It's not
you felt,
personal. It's
Well,
not personal.
to that person that you put the pain on. It's real personal. So
To that person, then that person should seek recourse through the law or the proper channels.
right. So if I'm understanding correctly, again, I'm make sure I'm understanding correctly. You're saying under Giuliani, when something happened like that, if a prisoner, inmate,
under Bernard Carrick and Giuliani,
or assaulted an officer, there was some personal pain.
Yes, there was.
But the question became, what is the proper recourse to those type of actions? You're saying they will be charged. So you're not satisfied with this charging alone. You felt as though they need to be taught a lesson.
The statement that you made about the personal pain, we didn't inflict pain on an individual just because he broke certain rules or regulations. If you are actively assaulting an officer, we do what is necessary to stop
Oh, I agree with you on that.
the assault.
No, I'm saying after. Okay, I agree with you. If there's an officer in trouble,
but words
at that
mean a
moment in time-
lot. It's how you phrase that question.
Okay,
that
I apologize if
feel
I
a
didn't
way
phrase
about
it
that.
properly. So if there has been an assault that has taken place, not in progress, has taken place, you're saying the proper recourse would be that they can be charged.
Get charged.
The prisoner can be charged with that particular incident.
Crime that was committed.
Right.
That's what should happen. That doesn't happen, and that's
It gets
the
swept
problem.
it gets swept under the carpet
Now,
because of numbers.
I can speak from experience. I did witness inmates who assaulted an officer, sexually assault a female officer. The crime itself was no longer in progress. They still caught an ass whipping because you actually had the nerve to assault an officer or sexually assault a female officer. But once we were told that is no longer allowed, then yes, then at least what you should do is then take them, rearrest them, and prosecute them for the assault or the sexual assault. But that became a problem, and they chose not to do that anymore.
Let me say this to interrupt. Active aggression against an assault of a person in uniform was the way of the job. Not saying it was correct, not saying it was the law. It was the way of the job. It was the way to contain or maintain control. Because if inmates knew that you assaulted or you laid hands on a person in uniform, this is what you can expect. That was the way of incarceration in the jails. All I'm saying is not that it was correct, proper. I'm not about abuse. I never was an abuser. Any inmate during my 32-year career, I can walk the streets of New York without having looking over my shoulder because of what I did in jail. Because any inmate that was under my control can say I was a good officer because I treated them like human beings. You a man or a woman? I worked in a woman's jail for 6 months. Would never do that again. Personal opinion. All I'm saying again is the restraints or constraints that we had in place to maintain control was if you put your hands on a person in uniform, this is what you can expect. It was just a way of control.
The unwritten rule.
Unwritten rule. And again, I'm not about abuse. And you know, I'm a person of color. I'm not about abuse of anybody, regardless of your color. I'm just saying, in order to maintain control, you have to have certain things in place. And if inmates knew that if you put your hands on a person in uniform, this is what you can expect. And again, we're not trying to beat you to death. It was letting you know this is not accepted. It won't be tolerated.
And 99% of the time, they knew not to do it again. I don't want to have happen.
It was
what
very
just happened
effective.
to me.
Very effective.
That's called a deterrent.
If you have in your future podcasts an inmate, they'll tell you how it was or how it is in prison penitentiaries. You could do certain things to each other, but you do not do that to a person in uniform.
Wow. This is going to require a part 2, fellas. This will require a part 2, ladies and gentlemen,
I look
boys
forward
and
to
girls.
I got stories.
Sounds good to me.
I got
Okay.
32 plus years of stories.
Folks,
My brother Marty can tell you his take.
I only have 20. Again, he's been through
And
more,
he came
seen
after,
more.
but he's seen how we ran the jails, and when
And
he
I
came
saw
on the
what it
cusp
became.
of it changing, he seen how it changed. I seen it, and it was time for me to go, and I left.
okay, as we wrap up this part 1, because there will need to be a part 2, I'm going to ask that you leave the folks with something, again, maybe something I didn't ask, something that you had on your mind that you wanted to share on this particular episode, to share with the folks as we wrap up. Marty, anything?
I'll just say this. When it comes to Rikers, law enforcement, politics, what we need to have, as you said earlier, is the conversation. There's two sides to the story. And what's happening now is that we're only hearing one side because, as I said, there is an unsilent minority. They speak the loudest, and that's all anybody sees or hears, and they believe that's the way it is, so everything else is wrong. And what we need is to have the conversation with the other side, see how the other side sees things, feels about things, and then let's figure out a way to come to some agreement.
T.
I want to say this. In my experience, I want people to understand. Sometimes it is us against them. But just understand this. This is a way of life in society. You got jail. You got people out in the streets. You got freedom. When you go to jail, there's a certain protocol that must be adhered to. You broke the law, you go to jail. If you do not obey the rules or the laws of the free streets, you must obey the laws of incarceration. The liberals, the politicians, with politics, have made it an unattainable job to have. I want to say this. People, when you look at TV, don't believe what you hear or see on the radio or television. Ask your people who have experienced the real. I want to end it by this. When there is no law, there is chaos. That's in or out. At this point, until the next time, I have so much more to say. Thank you for your time.
You know what I'm thinking? Part 2, I'm going to invite a former inmate who has spent some time in prison to sit at this table to give their perspective of the other side, so we can have maybe a full, complete picture of what it's like to be an inmate and what it's like to be a correction officer. So that's going to be part 2, folks.
Thank you, my brother.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of Smoke World in the books. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at Smoke World Podcast. Email stone@smokeworldpodcast.com. Website smokeworldpodcast.com. Again, folks, don't forget to share, subscribe, and like. And we will check you out on the other side. Thanks for listening. We love you. Peace.